I wanted to do a video running through the Contenders group, the European group today, and then I'll do the North American one tomorrow. Just the first day of the groups happened. It was a full round robin between all of the teams, and it was pretty interesting. Threw up some unexpected results in both tournaments for sure, but Europe looked like it was going to be more kind of distinct, the difference between the top teams and the middling teams and then the bottom teams, and it actually turned out not to be. Whereas I think everybody looking in the North American groups, apart from the group with LG Evil in, where they somehow rigged the group. Honestly, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know how they managed that. Lucky bastards. But everybody else has got just the groups could honestly go anywhere. So I'm going to do that tomorrow, though. Today, let's have a look at the European ones. So this website that I'm using is over.gg. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. If you're not, then you should use this site. It is excellent. And I write for this site, so there's my bias. So this is how the groups panned out on day one. So just to set the scenes a little bit coming into this one, I'll just go through the groups and who I expected to do well, you know, because I never got the chance to do like a predictions article or anything like that, because I'm lazy and never did it. So United obviously were massive favorites coming into this one on Group A. I'm not going to talk about what actually happened here. I'm just going to highlight what I thought coming into it, and you'll be able to see, based on the evidence before you, how that went. So United should have been massive favourites coming into Group A. They came second at TakeOver. Were pegged by everybody to be the top pegged by all of the teams, that is, to be the top European team. They only dropped maps in that to Rogue. They didn't drop maps to anybody else throughout that tournament. Team Expert have been improving. They made a roster change recently as well to bring in Vainless over their old Swedish support Ruby. Vainless is a smart guy. I could definitely see that improving them coming into the tournament. But I was expecting them to be on the same level as Bazooka Puppies, both quite significantly below E United. Bazooka Puppies are the old LDLC team that had like Meta, Meza, these kind of guys in. And they brought in Rubicon on the support where Cabal used to play it. So, these guys are good, definitely. The team split up, though, because as far as I'm aware, they just kind of didn't see themselves going anywhere. So it's weird that they've... it's not weird that they've reformed because they were all free agents at the time, but it's kind of... it would be strange to see them have performances against Tier 1 teams, you know? So I was expecting United way on top, Expert and Puppies kind of giving them a bit of a run for their money, but not really, just kind of contesting for second place. Esperati just down in fourth. Group B... Misfits were looking improved towards the end of TakeOver, actually. And in the qualifying series as well, they looked decent. They looked like they'd started to get their shit together. They had a plan coming into a lot of the games. They weren't throwing away their ultimates as much. They looked like they had a decent idea about how they wanted to move forward as a team. Laser Kittens as well. They were a weird one coming into this group, actually, because I don't really seen them in the qualification. And in the qualification, they played quite poorly. But they have so much talent on this team, just individual... I mean, it's not a stacked team in terms of individual talent, like they've just got stars. But they've got a lot of promising talent and a lot of people that are highly rated amongst their peers in the community. They just brought in Mausasa, for example, who people were touting as the #1 European Winston. They had picked up Line Pro and Munchkin and Claris, and bootcamped in Korea for a while, and basically just throwing money at the wall to see what stuck. So I wasn't quite sure where they would fit. You know, I had hopes that they would be able to contest the Tier 1 teams in Europe, but wasn't sure. Their qualification wasn't too good, so I was placing them as second in the group. Ninjas with Attitude were a good team a long time ago, kind of reformed. Two of their new players, I think they only had a couple of days to gel with. I was pegging them at third in the group, to be honest, if Laser Kittens were going to perform well. But if Laser Kittens performed like they were in the qualifying process, then NWA should have had a reasonable chance to be able to contest for that second place spot. And Team Esporters Cyber Athletes, as the name suggests, I thought would just be wrecked a little bit like Esperati. I was expecting both of those two teams to be right at the bottom. Kind of the two teams that snuck into the qualifiers, in my opinion. Group C was really where I didn't have a clue who was going to take it. The reason is Team Singularity have been on the up and up recently. Or not too recently, actually, but kind of ever since just before Pit. When was that? Like May? Kind of around April time, they started to be on a bit of an incline going upwards. They've recently made some roster changes as well. They brought in a new manager / coach. Things in the qualifications seem to be looking good for them. They seem to be starting to gel. So coming into this, I was feeling fairly confident about them. Vivi's Adventure as well are another team. They came top in the qualifiers of Pit. Kind of got slammed a little bit in the main season of it. But they are a good team at dive. They have a fairly one-track mind, I think, in terms of what they want. But they all kind of know what they have to do within their piece of the puzzle, even if they don't have a wider picture, I think. So they work fairly well together. They also have quite a bit of individual talent. So, yeah, I was expecting them to do okay as well. But it was really a toss-up. I wouldn't be able to pull these apart. I think I would have put Team Singularity on top coming into this as well. But NIP are the big question marks coming into this one, right? Because they've been playing tanks for ages. And even when they were at TakeOver, they were playing tanks. And tanks with a Zen. Putting Fraggy on the Reinhardt most of the time, to be honest. Zupa had made the switch over to Zen, so they're playing this Zen triple tank, which I thought was really interesting. It was like one of the metas of TakeOver, which really hadn't gone elsewhere. It was a very EU thing to play Zen tanks. And they've completely got rid of that. They, in the qualification process, had brought in Linkser, I believe in the qualifiers actually, to replace Mafu, and they were running with Himsy, I think, and he was playing Diva Soldier 76 for them. And they were pretty much playing triple DPS the whole time. They were also flexing Himsy over to the Diva. And they looked like it was a completely different style for them. That they still had some of the teamwork, and they had quite a bit of individual talent that was doing well. Linkser and Zappis in particular are really good. But when you've been playing tanks ever since you got to the top, it's gonna take a long time to change. And man, that was like, was that a full 12 months ago now? I think it pretty much is. NIP have been playing triple tank for 12 months, and maybe it's like more like 11. And now they want to switch. They're just diving straight into the deep end with like triple DPS or 2-2-2. They actually didn't look that bad in the qualifying process. I thought they might gel together a little bit, but big question mark about how they would perform. Gamers Origin, I think they actually kind of fluked their way to a better seeding in the qualifying process than they, I don't want to say deserved, but if they had got matched up against every team, as it is in this series, where it's a round robin, I think their flaws would really become exposed. They haven't really shown that much with their two new DPS players. They previously liked to play tanks. Now they're switching towards dive. They picked up a DPS duo that are more favored towards dive. It seems they play a lot of Genji Tracer. So if I was to rank this, I would have tentatively put NIP qualifying either in 1 or 2. Team Singularity Ninjas in either second or first along with them. Vivi's Adventure and Gamers Origin 4th. But Gamers Origin are actually a decent team. So, I mean, in either of these two groups, they certainly wouldn't have come 4th because these guys are, I would have said, are worse and possibly even NWA. Coming into the final group, I thought this was going to be one of the strangest because I expected Movistar Riders to dominate, apart from they would probably be contested by Cyclones, and I thought that might be a fairly close match between the two. Cyclones have just got in 2 new Swedish guys, although one of them was still trialing Latex on tank, but they got in Eps, and I thought they would probably be able to gel together. They had looked pretty decent actually in the qualifying process. They'd won the second day of it and got the 9th seed. So I was expecting Movistar Riders to be on top, Cyclones to be second, and 1-2-3 and Alpha Squad I actually thought were good teams. I thought this was quite a stacked group, to be honest. But because I thought Movistar and Cyclones would be actually really good, that these two teams would look comparatively weaker despite actually being legit teams with upset potential if there had been other teams in the group. For example, I think 1-2-3 coming into this would have definitely had a potential to, like, I would have thought, that is not using this evidence, but coming into it without judging only from the qualification and what I've seen on paper, I would have thought 1-2-3 could contest these kind of teams. Bazooka Puppies, Expert, NWA definitely, possibly even Laser Kittens, depending on how they performed. A couple of guys in this group. Alpha Squad, less of an unknown. More of like a weaker team in terms of the unknowns. They hadn't done as much on paper, but that's where I thought that would be. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But obviously it didn't work out like that. So this is how things have boiled down. So if we go through Group A to start over again, what actually happened was United played their first 2 games and instantly just tied twice against Team Expert and Bazooka Puppies. And what you'll see is the theme of this video as well is that it all happened off stream, basically. Every single storyline in this entire group stage happened off stream. It's just, I don't know, man. They have too many games for the amount of time that they've actually played. I assume it's some kind of scheduling problem with, like maybe they had to push Contenders back or something, and so I didn't have time to stream all the games. But I mean, you just don't have any sense of how the group stage went down because you didn't get to see hardly any of the games. Look at how many VODs are recorded. This was streamed from Henzu's POV. This one from Henzu's POV. So there's was it just 4 games? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And Henzu streamed 3. So you really didn't get a good sense of where these teams stacked up. A lot of this is just going to be analysis from paper, which is terrible, but I'll do my best by looking into the details. So United start out with 2 ties. Here's the first tie. They played against Team Expert, who I thought would be improved, having added Veinless to the roster. I genuinely didn't think that they'd be able to take 2 maps against the United, though. At most, 1, I thought, would be... Like, if United slipped a little bit, they might be able to get a map. But they went toe-to-toe with them. You can see here on Numbani as well. Sorry, not Numbani. Where are we? Yeah, Temple of Anubis. They managed to take it. So, the weird thing about United as well, if we just quickly glance over to the next one. So, here, United lost the Assault map and the Escort map towards the end. And the fact that they lost Gibraltar, which is United's, like, it's one of their best maps. It's fantastic for triple DPS and 222 dive. But all of these teams now are playing triple DPS and 222 dive. So they kind of lose that advantage in a sense. But still, they played tons of it, and they are the better dive team in general. So I'm so surprised that they actually lost on Watchpoint Gibraltar. And Manitin tweeted at me afterwards when I was kind of like, whoa, these groups are crazy. And brought up a really valid point, that is, when you're playing triple DPS against triple DPS, or these dive comps in general, if a small thing goes wrong, you just like lose one tiny aspect of the fight, you can get snowballs so hard. And as I've said multiple times before, it's not a snowball like ultimate snowballs like you used to get in the tank meta. It's a snowball of like they're putting so much pressure on you because they've got the mobility just to push up so far and get individual picks, and they're like spawn camping you and just one guy on the payload. But the weird thing about United here is that they lost Assault and then Gibraltar. And then you go into this one. Sorry, not this one. This one, the next one that they drew. And they won Assault and Gibraltar. And they actually lost the Hollywood and Nepal. So it makes me lean towards the fact that it was perhaps just a bad day overall for United. Rather than it being a flaw in a certain game mode. Exploitation of some weakness that they have. The other teams stepping up in a particular aspect. I think perhaps the storyline here lends me to believe, again, this is all just from analysing it from the fucking paper results, that it was probably just a bit of a soft day for United. But nevertheless, Expert are able to take these 2 maps. And these aren't perfectly accurate. The amount of checkpoints is accurate, but the distance push and time remaining is not, because they weren't on stream. They were just reported by players. So then Bazooka Puppies go up against Team Expert. Team Expert gets the better end of them. Again, playing really well. This game, again, was off-stream. But they perform well across these maps. Bazooka Puppies win Nepal. Again, they come out with the win on Assault, Team Expert. And then they win on the Escort map as well. United go up against Bazooka Puppies and draw against them, despite the fact that they drew with Expert and Expert beat them. And some of the maps were super close from the look of it, but United just go 2-2 with them again. Hollywood, both teams take it right to the end, but Bazooka Puppies are able to repush. That's what that means when they've got like 90 seconds remaining. It means that both teams were able to get it all the way to the checkpoint. These guys finished in overtime, so they didn't get an opportunity to push. Well, they did, and they failed. And Bazooka Puppies pushed and were able to take the first take with 90 seconds remaining. And then they managed to take Nepal from E United as well, which I think is a real excellent endeavor, actually. I'd be really interested to see which stages these are on as well, but that's not something that OverGG or anyone, as far as I'm aware, currently records on off-stream games at the very least. United able to take Hanamura in this instance, and then they're actually able to take Watchpoint Gibraltar as well. Although, again, both teams not really completing it, and this is normally a map where people complete it fairly far. And as Omegon says here, Rubicon's revenge, man. Rubicon joins this team, and then suddenly they're looking like they can really go toe to toe with people. So if we go back over here and look at how that affected the group overall, this is of course just the first half of the double round robin. So these guys all played each other. They all played 3 games. So Bazooka Puppies played Expert, United, Desperati, and went 1-1-1. And next week they'll do the same again. So they have a week to sit back and like prepare and think about what they learned. Obviously they weren't playing their games like blindfolded, even though we're analyzing it blindfolded in that sense. So they'll know what to improve on and what the actual situation was. But I would expect E United to have a step up next week. I would expect them certainly to be able to qualify. I think if they go out in 3rd place, having another poor performance, or like an even worse performance next week, and Bazooka Puppies for whatever reason step up, or Team Expert and Bazooka Puppies sneak in over them, that would be a massive upset. That is a huge upset in Group A if United go out in 3rd. I would expect them actually to probably go out in 1st, even with their current record of 1-2. They haven't actually lost anything, and I'm not sure whether Team Expert and Bazooka Puppies are really going to catch them off guard as much. And it looked like it was perhaps a bit of a weak day for United. So I still have confidence in United to escape this group, probably in 1st place. Team Expert looked like the better team out of the other 2 as well, Bazooka Puppies and Expert. Did get the better end of them in the head-to-head matchup. They both drew against United, but that one will certainly be close. Team Expert have put themselves to a great start, though, by getting 2 direct wins. And it is the win-loss tie ratio, record, whatever you want to call it, that actually matters in this tournament, unlike TakeOver, where it was the map record. So it matters whether you won or lost or tied. So a 3-1 is infinitely better. Well, not infinitely better, but a 3-1 is a lot better than a 2-2. And a 4-0 is the same as a 3-1, essentially. You can drop 1 map, just don't drop 2. Okay, so if we close these, go into Group B. So Group B, as I said, I expected these 2 teams to get out, but I expected the order to actually be reversed. Kind of. I really didn't know where Laser Kittens were going to be in terms of their ability to contest top-tier teams. And Misfits have been looking... I mean, they look better in the qualification, but in general, they've looked like they're in a bit of a slump. So they're on the lower end of kind of what you would call the top-tier teams. Of course, finished in joint last place in TakeOver 2. So not great for them. But the story of this group was Ninjas with Attitude shitting the bed. Just an absolute shitting the bed from them. It was incredible. So, oh wait, why have I got the NIP games here? Right, whoa. Okay, is it this one? Yeah, here it is. Okay, so here's the game with NWA. And NWA had already lost to Misfits and Laser Kittens 4-0 on both, and it wasn't particularly close, I don't think. Some of the maps were reasonably close. I think they actually did they take a map from Laser Kittens, actually? Let me have a look. No, they didn't. Laser Kittens 4-0'd them as well. So yeah, it was 4-0 from both sides. So they actually they drew a map with Misfits or something. They had something weird where they drew a map on Anubis, so they actually get the points for it. But anyway, this is what happened when they actually played against Team Esporters Cyber Athletes, the team that kind of just snuck into the qualifiers. They're like the best team with a majority Spanish lineup, but I mean, if you guys have heard of these players, then good on you. You're fucking following the EU scene way closer than I am, because I have never heard of any of these guys. They've made occasional, like when they qualified, I looked them back up on Wikipedia and stuff, and they made occasional runs in like GoForce and stuff, but never particularly deep, never doing that well. Who was the team they beat? I think they beat LDLC. I could be wrong about that, actually. Team Esporters Cyber Athletes. No, they didn't. They didn't even meet anyone in their bracket. They just got to the end and beat the Fidgeting Spinneteers or something. There was no good team in their bracket. It just happened to run that way. So they got almost free entry towards the end compared to the other level of teams that were trying to qualify. I mean, if they'd run into Ice Block or something like that, then they would have probably got smacked. But then they come up against NWA, and you got to add the caveat here as well that Hafikul wasn't playing. They instead were subbing in Mikey A, who isn't really a Genji player, as far as I know. He certainly doesn't play that in any teams that he's played with recently. He didn't play that in FaZe, for example, obviously. And this game was off stream, so we didn't see what kind of comp they were running. But it looked like these guys had way too close a game here. And they actually lost. I mean, they lost Hollywood, for starters, to Team Esports Cyber Athletes, which has got to get you tilted immediately. When you're 4-0 down from both of the teams that you should be kind of trying to contest, then you lose the first map, bad news. And then this is accurate. This isn't just some random thing that they've typed in. It was 100-99 on all 3 stages. They managed to get Temple of Anubis. And then Watchpoint Gibraltar they lose as well. It's just a horrific performance from NWA. And they're 2 losses, 1 tie. So their chances of escaping the groups now, they would have to... What would they have to do next week? They'd have to get at least 2 wins, and Misfits lose to everybody. But Misfits are not going to lose to everybody because they're at least going to beat Team Esports Cyber Athletes. So they're going to be at 3, at least 3 and whatever that'll be, 3 and 3. No, 3 and 2. And these guys would have to win 3 games to be above them. These guys are in dire straits. They would have to beat literally everybody in their group, including Misfits and Laserkins, to be able to advance through this group, which is a nightmare of a situation for them to be in. And yes, and then Misfits versus Laserkittens was the last streamed game of the day, which was an interesting one to see, actually. Because these guys had matched up in Pit, and Misfits managed to take the win. And then they matched up in the qualifiers, and again, Misfits managed to take the win. And both times, Laserkittens looked way underneath their level. Laserkittens looked like they were playing... I mean, since they came back from Korea, they'd only played the qualifiers. But in the qualifiers, they just looked sloppy. They looked like they hadn't really performed that well. They looked like they didn't have the individual talent to be able to do it, perhaps, even though Munchkin was playing really well. Coming into this game, though, it was completely different. Munchkin was absolutely pounding on Tracer. Mausasa was playing superbly on Winston throughout the game, pretty much. Gray was hitting some great stuff. Krems was definitely holding his own and occasionally outplaying his counterpart. And Kib had some good performances as well. He was actually outplaying Nevix. They did a really good job, actually, at shutting down Nevix. Nevix was completely silent the whole game, pretty much. And Reinforce just kind of got slammed whenever he dived in. They had really good focus on him. It was an excellent showing, actually, from Laserkins. They finally looked like a team that you would want to spend that much money on, you know? They actually looked like they deserved the hype that's been around them, perhaps. So definitely great showing from Laserkittens. I hope they continue with that kind of performance. But Misfits as well, pretty much guaranteed to get out of the group here. This is the most cut and dry group that there is so far. Moving on to Group C, the group of who the fuck knows what's going to go on right here. So from what I predicted, slight difference because Ninjas in Pajamas shit the bed early on in the day and really weren't able to perform, but kind of picked it up towards the end, so they didn't look too bad. They actually got a win and a tie, so they're not doing awfully. Vivi's Adventure did really well and actually have a better map record than Team Singularity, but because they lost their head-to-head, and because they have an extra tie, they are second at the moment. But both of these teams are looking really good. It did kind of feel like a hot streak, though, from Vivi's Adventure. But I think it's a little bit perhaps unfair to say that, because the reason I say that is that I was actually watching these games that whenever they say Vivi's Adventure weren't actually on the official Overwatch Contenders cast the whole time. All of their games, like this one against NIP, this one against Team Singularity, where's the other one? This one against Gamers Origin, they were all streamed from Henzu, their Flex, their Genji, his point of view. So maybe, you know, you get an unfair insight into what their comms are like. Perhaps it gives the impression that they're playing above their station, even when they're not. Maybe they're just always like that, you know. So I don't want to take too much away from that, because that was a unique insight to that team that you didn't get on any of the others. But certainly I feel like NIP can definitely step up with a week to perform and kind of gel their roster together a little bit. They had different players subbing in for different matches. So if we have a look at this one, they were playing with, oh damn, this one they were playing with Mafu. Which were, they were playing Mafu there as well. Okay, Mafu there as well. But they started the day. They started the day playing with Himsy as well. So they were kind of swapping and swapping between the two of them. But they stuck to Mafu for the majority of the day. But they played a game. Wait, no, shit, that's all 3 games. I swear to God they played a game with Himsy today. Or did they play with Himsy in the qualifiers and I just got it messed up in my head? It must have been, man. It must have just been in the qualifiers then. I thought that Himsy was playing earlier on. Didn't sub him out just for an individual map, did they? Because I know you are allowed to do that, actually. No, I'm just going mental. No, I am just dumb. Okay. So they were playing with Himsy, now they're playing with Mafu. In my opinion, that makes more sense as well, because Himsy, I mean, he plays the same kind of heroes, but Mafu actually plays them. They both don't play them too well, but Mafu definitely plays them better, I think. And he has more potential, I think, on the Soldier 76 and the D.Va, kind of the roles that you want out of your flex guy. Especially now that they've got Linkser on the team who can play the Roadhog at a really good level. Probably even better than Himsy's actually been playing it in recent months. Ever since, I guess, Hook 2.0 or something like that. Lynx has actually been playing or rather, Lynx has been playing it well for a long time. But Himsy kind of dropped off. So Linkser, I think, has actually overtaken him on the Hog and plays the Genji, so you definitely want him in. And then who do you want to fill your D.Va and Soldier 76 out of Mafu and Himsy? Probably Mafu, in my opinion. But yeah, so that was the roster they were using. They started off getting crushed by Vivi's Adventure. It just kind of got dumpstered. Some of the maps were close, but some of them just weren't as well. Then they go up. All right, so then on the other side of it, the other 2 teams faced off. Team Singularity got the better hand over Gamers Origin, and Team Singularity then started to do really well. They've just they've got Craggy in, who plays a really good Tracer, and they've just got in What's Good as like their manager / coach, who I think is doing a fair bit of work with them. Like, I think he does a little bit of like analyst work as well. I don't think he's just a manager in that sense. I think he has more of an impact on the team than just that. And Gamers Origin looked like they were struggling a little bit as the day went on. Team Singularity faced off against Vivi's Adventure. This game was super close. This one was actually streamed from Hensy's point of view, and it was insanely close. Every stage was incredibly close. See, it doesn't really look like it on paper, but this is why the paper results can be misleading. But yeah, this game, incredibly close between the 2 teams that ended up finishing first and second. And then actually NIP, as I said, they started picking it up towards the end of the day. They actually managed to draw with Team Singularity in this fixture, despite losing Eichenwald at the beginning, which is their map. It's the one that they really enjoy picking. But they won Oasis from them. Then they lose to Hanamura, but they actually win on Watchpoint Gibraltar as well, which I think is an impressive showing from them. Because again, they're playing this dive composition. They're playing it a different style to the one that they've played for a full year almost, with a different roster as well. It changes things absolutely, bringing in Linkser and trying to move wholesale over to the dive meta. So that's, you know, a promising result for them, a sign that they actually can perform at that level. Maybe they just need time to gel, or it's only certain maps that work for them right now because they haven't put in all of the practice. But then they went on into their final game of the day, and they followed Gamers Origin. And it was actually a fairly dominant win in the end. This one was one of the games that was on stream, you can see there. And yeah, they kind of dumpstered them. Gamers Origin tried to run tanks into them, which I think is a bad idea, even if Gamers Origin are more comfortable on the tank. They have Dixie Dix playing the D.Va. I'm not sure how much D.Va he actually played in his own old team, Shooting Stars, along with Zik. But they used to have Leaf on that role, who was good on the Roadhog as well. So that's how they used to play the triple tank, and now they were playing it with Zarya D.Va, so it was a slight switch up for them. It wasn't actually the style that they were most comfortable with, even though it is triple tank. You do play it differently. And then they have Zik running around on the Tracer, but in general, NiP just outplayed them in that fixture. And so if you come back to how it looks overall, yes, NiP are currently sat in 3rd and would therefore not progress into the playoff stage, but overall I don't feel like they did that badly. And actually, if you think about the fact that they've got a week to develop on this, and they've already showed quite a bit of potential on just moving straight into dive, and they're kind of adapting to a new meta and new heroes for themselves as well, then I feel reasonably good about their chances of getting into the playoffs, because they just have to outplay these teams, and these teams actually kind of took maps off each other and took series off each other. So it's not like one team completely dominated and there's only one spot able to be scrapped over. If Singularity or Vivi's Adventure have a slump next week, then NIP can definitely try and make the playoffs. The only team that's really out of it is Gamers Origin. They've still got upset potential, actually, over basically all three of these teams. But I feel like they stylistically don't match up very well against NIP. They've got a kind of similar style, but actually seem to be worse at it in almost every way. But that style can play fairly well into Vivi's Adventure or Team Singularity. They would just have to be playing really well on the day, and they weren't on the first day. So this group really is still up for grabs for basically anyone, apart from Gamers Origin, who can just work to fuck over other teams, because they're nice like that. And Group D was the real thonker group, because I really did think that this was a strong group. As I said, I thought 1, 2, 3 are kind of probably on the level of some of these guys. But Alpha Squad I thought would be a little step below, and I thought Movistar Riders and Cyclones would actually be a step above, to the point where they would just be able to assert themselves as the number 1 and number 2 team. Obviously has not happened. Cyclones had a shocker of a day that was only replicated really by NWA, but their hopes were less than Cyclones, because coming into this one, Cyclones had been feeling pretty good, I think, about their new roster. As I said, they got the Swedes in, they got Ebbs on the flex support. He's actually a really good flex support player. They got Latex on tank. Honestly, Latex was getting caught out a lot on tank, particularly that day. On the Winston, getting really shredded. Seemed to be off tempo with the rest of his team a lot of the time. But yeah, they had a shocker of a day. Let's see. So they started out with a game against Riders. It was their first match. It was on stream. They got kind of dumpstered, especially when you consider that 1, 2, 3, I'll go over this match in a second, but 1, 2, 3 tied with Movistar Riders, and then Alpha Squad even managed to take a map off them, but Cyclones just got wrecked 4-0. And it wasn't like they got wrecked in terms of each map, but they just consistently lost each map. You can see Eichenwald here was insanely close. They both managed to full complete, then they both managed to get it inside the castle towards the end as well, but Cyclones just couldn't push it over the line. There's like, what, 7 meters in it there? Lijiang Tower was actually relatively close on the second round. I think the first round was also fairly close, but they kind of got smacked towards the end. You never felt like they were really in it. I think it was the I think it was Night Market where they were just kind of getting dumpstered. Then, again, Temple of Anubis, they just kind of got wrecked. Like, Cyclones pushed to start off with. They couldn't crack this defense that they had at all with Neptuno and the Sombra. And then Movistar Riders come in and they're just able to do it really, really quickly. They just get their first tick. They just get one good fight on the point. Cyclones not able to stall. That was it. And then Watchpoint Gibraltar, they kind of both held each other towards the end of the map, underneath the ledge and staircase, just before the home stretch. But again, this one was pretty close. But again, Cyclones just not being able to clinch it towards the end. You know, they're pushing second, same as Eichenwald, but then just not able to match the same pace that Movistar did. I think it's a really good defense coming out from Movistar more than anything. They just outplayed them overall and denied them any maps, which was actually crucial. So then, earlier in the day, Movistar Riders had been 2-2'd by 1, 2, 3. So you're thinking, is this a weak day for Movistar Riders? Is there a chance that they're going to be the ones slipping? But actually, 1, 2, 3 have come out of this group as one of the stars, and people should be super taking notice of these guys, because I've got an interview coming out with them soon, actually, as well. It should be in the next couple of days. But these guys have just kind of stacked good talent on their roster. They've got a core from Bodasocken, this Swedish team that used to exist. They got some other really good individually talented players, Mistakes and Snello particularly, but they haven't played on stream at all. Look, if you go to their match page on OverGG and look at their match history, just VODs unavailable, VODs unavailable, unavailable. They've played in the Contenders qualifiers and then in Group D, and they've not been on stream once. Nobody has a clue how these guys play unless you've actually played against them. in terms of, you know, like, what do they bring to the table? Have you scrimmed them? Have you played them in a match? Do you know what they're going to do in X situation? These guys are super dedicated. They're the next upcoming team in Europe. I'm gonna call it out. I think 123 have probably got the consistency and the ability to outperform a team like Expert, who look like now is their time to shine. I would be, if I was looking at this group and trying to pick out like a rising star, a dark horse of the tournament, maybe not to win it all, but certainly to go much deeper than you'd expect. And arguably they've done that already. But it would be these guys, 123. So they started off, they played Movistar Riders. Again, this is all off stream. Iconvalve, you can see that both teams just kind of locked each other out, and Movistar Riders were able to get that one. Oasis, this does seem to be a bit of a recurring theme, that 123 are weaker on control than the other maps, but also Movistar Riders are super sick on control, so it might just be that. Assault, they're able to take it, and then they're able to take the escort as well, which I thought was really good. They're actually able just to completely lock out Movistar Riders when they tried to go for the offense, which is pretty sick. They then go up against Cyclowns and poop on them. Again, off stream, no idea what happened. This was the nail in the coffin. Cyclowns have now disbanded. Cyclowns have disbanded because their players were receiving offers, and the only thing essentially keeping these guys together, I would speculate, was the fact that they were actually doing well. In the second day of qualification, they came top. They got the 9th seed coming into this. They were former top team. They know that they have the synergy. They know they have the potential. They shit the bed. They got 4-0'd by Movistar Riders and then 1-2-3. These guys beat them across all of these maps. You can see Numbani went the distance, and then 1-2-3 were able to win. They actually beat them on Oasis as well. Hanamura, they're able to take the victory. Watchpoint Gibraltar as well. These are maps that Cyclones should be able to perform on, particularly Numbani, Watchpoint Gibraltar, maybe even Oasis. These used to be good maps for Cyclones. 1-2-3 just kind of wrecked them. I think Cyclones were suffering probably from the mental strain as well of having a team that you're not sure whether it's going to fold or not. There's a lot of pressure to get big results, and you still don't have that organization behind you, a lot of uncertainty and stuff. And 1-2-3 just came in and they were like, right, well, we don't have an org either. We're going to dumpster you. Alpha scored as well, though. Haven't really mentioned them, but they actually did pretty well. They got 2 ties in this one and 1 loss. And their ties, I mean, they tied Cyclones, but they also tied 1-2-3. They lost 3-1 to Movistar Riders as well, so they're able to get a map from Movistar Riders, and they're able to tie Cyclones and 1-2-3, which I think is a respectable performance from them. They're, again, another team that you want to keep an eye out for, but they're not really at the level of these other teams that could, make really deep runs, like your Experts, Bazooka Puppies. I have no idea what's going on in Group C, if I'm going to be blatantly honest. Laser Kittens and 1-2-3. I don't think they're quite on the level of these guys. Maybe they're on the level of some of these guys. Very difficult to actually tell where these guys are matching up in Group C. But Alpha Squad, they haven't, if you look at their team profile as well, they haven't really played that many games. They've only played in really 3 tournaments so far. They played in the Takeover 2 qualifiers, the H&D Invitational, and these. They have had a couple of VODs. The Viva's Adventure guys played against them as well, so you get a feel for how they play. They're a full finish team. They have a pretty nice style overall, and they're able to get some decent results. But if we look at how we expect this group to go forwards as well, Cyclones have disbanded. They're out of the running, so it's a 3-horse race here. It's between these 3 guys, so it's basically a case of who is not going to go through, and I think you have to say it's going to be Alpha Squad in this situation. 1-2-3, I mean, Movistar Riders to start off with, I feel like they actually got surprised a little bit by 1-2-3, and they're probably going to be able to get the better end of them, or at least tie them again next time. 1-2-3 and Alpha Squad seem to be fairly even against each other. They did tie 2-2, but 1-2-3 look like the better team overall. The fact that none of them can get the wins over Cyclones, though, is the weird thing, because all these 3 teams at some point tied with each other. So even though they might be even next week, it's going to be difficult for Alpha Squad to actually claw back the deficit that they're in at the moment, because they obviously have no wins, and it is the wins that matter, not the map record, which as well is weaker. So to summarize, my predictions for next week would be E-United and Expert to be able to go through, although Bazooka Puppies put up a really good fight. Misfits and Laser Kittens to go through, or rather, let's do it in the seeding order. So I reckon it's going to be E-United, Expert, 1 and 2, with a very close 3. I reckon it's going to be Laser Kittens, then Misfits, 1 and 2, with no close 3 or 4. I think Group C is so hard, man. It's so weird. I think Team Singularity are going to be able to win the group, take first seed, just because at the moment they've got the best record. They haven't lost a game, and I expect it to be kind of even next week. So it makes sense to go for the team that's currently in the lead, right? And Team Singularity have looked the most consistent out of all of the teams as well. So I'm going to go for Team Singularity in number 1. But I'm actually going to say that I think NIP will try and pull it back and probably end up securing that number 2 spot. But, you know, they could end up in 3rd as well. It could end up just being the same. Gamers Origin, I'm going to say go out in 4th, but have the potential to upset pretty much any of those teams. And over here, I reckon it's going to be Movistar Riders in 1, 2, 3 with Alpha Squad probably going relatively even, but just losing out based on how they performed this week, basically. So that's my thoughts on Contenders EU group stage day 1, and I will do North America tomorrow.